Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo here with Mike Renner. We're bringing him in on a Monday to discuss a little NFL draft. Mike, again, we've got the phone on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Still waiting for the call.
It's been a while with the phone on the table.
Look, we're not – my wife's due date isn't until next Monday.
Yeah.
But it was because she just –
I don't want to –
she had scares.
I get it. It happens. I mean, I have no clue how that feels, but
I know. You sure? You don't?
I have no clue, but
yeah. This is baby number 3, and my wife still has no clue how it feels either because we've got this 2-week window here, now 1-week window before the Super Bowl. Like, this can't roll into the weekend.
Yeah, I'm guessing Sunday 4:30 is when she's probably going to go into labor. If I had to guess a time.
It's not ideal. It's not ideal. So if the phone rings again, the rules are I leave.
Yes.
And you run the show. Anyway, we got all sorts of fun NFL draft discussion today. We're going to keep it broad, but also get specific on some bigger topics. The top 5 picks in the draft. We'll discuss what's going to happen with those top 5 picks, guys that we think are good fits, guys that we think are bad fits that we're seeing mocked in that top 5. So that'll be just a different view from, I think, what other people are seeing here. We're also going to highlight some prospects where the production hasn't met the hype. These are the guys that we see in first-round mocks left and right, and we're just like, no. Just not there, or not top 5, not top 10, whatever it might be. We'll get into some burning questions. I had a key tweet. I thought it was a really key tweet this weekend, an epiphany about evaluators, what a true outlier is. We'll get into some my guys. But let's start.
Pat yourself on the back less for that tweet, Steve.
That's what we do here. That's what you did when you hosted. You talked about all your
I know.
All your
I know. When you have the
stuff.
host role, you get to pump that.
I'm learning from you.
That's why I know. Continue.
I learned from watching you, son. Anyway, breaking down the top 5 picks. The top 5 picks in the NFL draft. The Arizona Cardinals at 1. San Francisco 49ers, New York Jets, Oakland Raiders, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Broadly speaking, interesting draft because none of those teams technically need quarterbacks. That's a whole separate discussion.
Exactly. That's
right. Would the Cardinals ever move on from Josh Rosen? Would the Raiders ever move on from Derek Carr? Bucks from Jameis Winston? But assuming they have quarterbacks, what are you looking at here? Is Nick Bosa the slam dunk number 1 overall pick here?
I believe so. I don't think I would go anywhere else if I'm the Arizona Cardinals. The only other option that I would say if they drafted him, I wouldn't think you're crazy, is Quinnen Williams, just because, yes, you have Chandler Jones on one side, and you really have no one on the interior there. Robert Nkemdiche has not come along for the Arizona Cardinals enough to stop me from drafting an interior pass rusher like Quinnen. He's versatile, can do a lot of things there. So one of those two, I can't say you're wrong for drafting either of those two. I can say you're wrong for pretty much drafting anyone else, though.
So you think it's Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams. Those are the quote unquote blue chip top 2 guys that we've seen. We've evaluated just eyeball tests, but also of course the PFF evaluation system. Nick Bosa, elite grades 2 years in a row, was on his way to a third one before only playing 130 snaps or whatever it was last year. And then Quinnen Williams, the highest graded season we've ever seen from an interior defensive lineman. But essentially the consensus top 3 guys in almost every mock that I see is Bosa, Quinnen, and then Josh Allen.
Yes.
Have seen Josh Allen go 3, 4, whatever it is. Is he in that mix with those guys, or is he a step below?
I think he's a step below just because there's a lot of question marks with Josh Allen. He did not win with pretty much anything other than his athleticism at this point. His hands still aren't very much developed. He's just still pretty raw as a prospect, even though he's older than the other two. So that's already he's behind the developmental curve. You never know if he's ever going to put it all together. But athletically, I think he's the biggest freak of those 3. He's going to test out incredibly at the combine. He does have a lot of things going for him. And if in 5 years you said Josh Allen's a better player than either of those two, it wouldn't surprise me. In the NFL, that wouldn't be a huge surprise to me. But at the same time, you still want to maximize production on a rookie contract. I think those two are, Nick Bosa and Quinnen Williams, are as sure things as you're going to find in this draft. And to go other ways is just, rolling some unnecessary risk into the pick.
By the way, with Josh Allen, if you guys are on the YouTube channel, go find our Josh Allen profile on the YouTube channel. If you guys are listening to the podcast, I do
go
suggest.
Do that also.
What's that?
Still go find it.
I'm telling you, go to YouTube, search PFF Josh Allen. And we did an in-depth, first time we've ever done this, 17 or so minute profile on him. Jack Collinsworth, that's Chris Collinsworth's son, did the interview. He did a great job. Our video team did a fantastic job putting this together. Just some great insight on Josh Allen, his progression, in college, which he truly got better every single year, which mirrored how he got better in high school every single year. He actually quit football a couple times and came back. It's really a great story.
Red flag?
Well, I'm not going to bring it up as a red flag. Scouts are going to bring it up as a red flag. But
at least he has a red flag, so that's not a red flag.
Yeah, we don't want to have no red flags, because that's the
yeah.
biggest red flag. If you're a scout, no red flags, biggest red flag. So Josh Allen profile, it's on YouTube. Go check it out. When I was watching him the other day, my epiphany watching him is that he is what scouts and evaluators wanted Deion Jordan to be a few years ago. If you remember Deion Jordan, he went number 3 overall to the Miami Dolphins, and he's 6'7", and he's got these. He was a good athlete, if I remember. I mean, he looked burst and all that stuff. A lot of the Deion Jordan stuff was, though, it's like it just looked better because he was 6'7". It was like for a 6'7" guy,
it's like, whoa.
watch him run the seam with this tight end. So Oregon used to drop him into coverage all the time, and he'd do some cool coverage things for 6'7", but maybe not with respect to the rest of the NFL. He wasn't like an elite coverage player for the NFL, right? But I'm watching Josh Allen, and not only was he the highest graded pass rusher on the edge last year, but he had some plays in coverage. He had over 100 plays in coverage that were just unbelievable.
Yes.
I mean, running the seam with tight ends, legitimately. There was a play the other day I'm watching, I think it was against either Mississippi State, where they drop him into curl flat, and the running back wheel. Everybody says the running back wheel's undefeated. Josh Allen's step for step with the running back. It's smooth, too. He's a smooth space athlete. So my thing is, can he be a pass rush coverage combo player at the next level? And do any of these teams want to use him in that capacity?
I think yes. So when you text that to me, I said that's a fantastic take. I believe he can do that at a high level. There aren't a ton of teams that necessarily utilize a role like that.
Right.
Pittsburgh obviously has been one. The Packers utilized that role last year in their 4-3 of a guy who's sort of a true 3-4 outside linebacker where you don't know if he's rushing the passer every single snap. Whereas most 3-4 outside linebackers, guys like Von Miller, you're pretty sure they're rushing the passer. They only drop a couple of times a game in the coverage. So if you do have a role like that in your defense, I think you're going to cover his skill set. That's why I said there is a role where I can see you being higher on Josh Allen on your edge than Nick Bosa, because if you play a scheme like that, but so few teams do.
Yeah, so especially the teams picking here, the Cardinals could incorporate that, but you're talking about the 49ers, just a true 4-3. I mean, he would just be a hand in the dirt pass rusher for them. For the Jets, probably the same thing with Greg Williams coming in. For the Raiders, same thing in their scheme. And for the Bucs, they're going to more of a 3-4, different type of look down there. So maybe, he would be the guy there. I would be
surprised if he gets there, though.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he gets there as well. And I've always been of the mind, I don't necessarily want to pick a guy top 3 just because he does everything kind of well. I don't want to. My issue with Deion Jordan back then is he was a pretty good pass rusher. So don't overrate the versatility. I think Josh Allen could be a very good pass rusher and a very good coverage player. So the versatility works.
That's
for him.
the thing. It's being able to cover in and of itself is not valuable. Being able to cover at a high level is valuable.
Yes,
being able to press the passer at a high level is valuable. Just because you are capable of something doesn't mean that has necessarily value. You have to still do things well, and I think Josh Allen does both of those things well.
Yeah, we'll talk more about all these prospects. We'll have some more breakdowns on ProFootballFocus.com. On all of these players and our thoughts and the grades and all that fun stuff. By the way, the draft guide expected to drop first week of March, right before free agency, or right in that free agent period. So keep an eye on that if you guys have PFF Edge or Elite. So Bosa, Allen, Quinnen, all those guys seem to be not locked into the top 3, but you see them most commonly. Now the rest of the top 5, it's the Raiders and the Bucs. I see things all over the place here. Again, you're not getting Dwayne Haskins or Kyler Murray, the potential top 2 quarterbacks. You're not getting them mocked that high, or Drew Lock or Daniel Jones. I mean, they're whatever quarterbacks you like. So what rounds out the top 5 here, assuming there are no trade-ups right now?
I would say this is the interesting thing, is because I do think those 3 that you mentioned, Bosa, Allen, Williams, are in sort of a class all by themselves in terms of they are the best 3 players in this draft, regardless of position. They're going to be the most coveted, and if you're the Cardinals, 49ers, Jets, if you do trade down, so if let's just say one of those teams wants to trade up for a quarterback, wants to make sure they get their guy, whether it's Haskins, Murray, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock. So whoever you want to trade up for, if someone does trade up there and do that, will one of those teams be willing? Because at that point, if you're trading back, if you're the Jets, you're saying, oh, I'm not getting Josh Allen. Maybe I get more draft picks, but I'm not getting this home run sort of at the top of the draft. Do you foresee that being the case, to where I've always thought someone will trade up into that top 5? But do you think those 3 teams stand pat and just say, we're going to hold on for those 3 talent.
I love those 3 players, but I still think I would take the picks.
You take the picks.
I still think I would take the picks.
I do think it's a deep draft, though. So
So I mean, I think if you pick up another second rounder, you're probably going to pick up a second rounder or a third rounder or both.
Depending
you're
on
going
who
to pick
has to go up. Yeah,
you're going to pick up so much draft capital, and we do know that the more draft capital you pick up, the better off you are. But the interesting one's the Raiders, like you said, because if we do treat it as 3 blue chip players, are the Raiders the hot spot? They already have 3 first-round picks.
Yes.
Do they trade back and pick up even more picks?
This
is how you rebuild a team. This is why the Browns are where they are, because they accumulated pick after pick after pick, and
they didn't even hit on that many, And
well, that's
still,
the thing. That's the thing. Most evaluators, people have studied this stuff. Most evaluators don't pick at a higher rate than others. There's not like one guy that hits 75% and there's another guy at 30. Over time, everybody's at the 40 to 50% range.
It's. I mean, there's obviously a difference, but it's not like
but it's
one
not
guy just
80
knows,
to 20, right? So over time, if you just pick more, it's okay if you miss because you have more picks. It's just finding players. So the Raiders, I think, at 4 and the Bucs at 5 are the interesting one. So the Giants and the Jaguars. So if we're going to talk trade up, I could see the Jaguars one to jump the Giants, right, to get their guy.
Yes.
That's the key player in this whole thing. Do the Giants want to move up and get their guy, or do the Jags feel like they need to leapfrog the Giants and get that guy? Or do the Giants just say, we got Eli Manning, we have our guy?
From everything we've heard, it seems like they're going to keep at least Eli Manning for next year, which to me doesn't make a ton of sense just for a number of different reasons. That's a conversation for a different day. But I do think the Jaguars are the team that they're set right now. They need a quarterback right now. Going to the draft, I'm not sure is your best bet because you go a rookie quarterback, what's the chances that guy's going to hit immediately? I think they're the team most likely to get in the mix for Teddy Bridgewater. For a guy in the free agency this offseason and kind of skew the draft at this point because they have so many free agents on that roster who sort of, time is ticking to some degree that they just have to, their window is right now.
So the Giants and the Jags, from a QB movement standpoint, are the key players to watch. And then the Broncos, sitting there at 10. Do they go make a power move to go get their guy? If we have to pick players, let's discuss who we would take at 4 and 5, and then discuss the guys that we wouldn't take in the top 5 that we're seeing there. If we had to take players, I know I would probably start looking at the cornerbacks. And I don't think that there's necessarily a clear-cut number one corner. There's a Jalen Ramsey that I'm just like, all right, there's the guy. Or Marshawn Lattimore, that would, there's the guy.
Yeah.
But I think there's some very intriguing corners, and we know about cornerback value. We'll be talking about this all draft season. It's time to start talking about more corners in the top 10 than maybe the NFL has done in the past.
Yes, I do think there are a handful of corners. I mean, DeAndre Baker, Greedy Williams, Byron Murphy, who are step in right away, can start for your team type of talents, and that has a ton of value. And especially when your team like either of those, the Raiders or the Buccaneers, who both, obviously, if you watch them play any single game last season, they need help in their secondary.
What about those top 3 teams, though, too, at corner? Because they all need corners, too. Cardinals opposite Patrick Peterson. The 49ers need better depth. The Jets have needed, to solidify the cornerback position for a while. As much as, here's the thing, it's easier to project pass rushers at the next level. Like, I feel really good about Nick Bosa. I feel really good about Quinnen Williams and Josh Allen. I feel good about those guys their projections and their production carrying over. I feel less good about the corners.
Yes.
But if the corner hits, they're more valuable than those top pass rushers, is what we've learned.
Yes.
This is what we're learning.
But I do think, again, it goes back to the unnecessary risk that I was talking about earlier. You pretty much know Bosa and Williams. Now, Allen, to some degree, I still feel like is still safe in terms of just what he can do athletically. Not a lot of guys that freakishly athletic just fizzle out in the NFL. He is just a freak of nature and has already produced at an extremely high level. So I do think those 3 are about as safe as it gets in this entire draft. I would also, who I'm more looking at for the Raiders and Bucks, and now the Raiders won't take him because of what happened last year, but the Bucks could definitely take him, or should take him, Jonah Williams, the tackle, Alabama.
I forgot about Jonah for a while. Yep.
He is the best offensive tackle in this class, quite clearly. I don't care what his arm length is at the combine. He is good enough to hold up at tackle in the NFL.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
True junior, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah. But the Buccaneers obviously need a tackle.
I like that fit.
From what they've 4 years of Donovan Smith, it's time to move on. He averaged something over like 50 pressures a season in 4 years, which is just god awful. So you have to get some pass protection there. That was their downfall offensively a season ago. A big reason why they had so many turnover-worthy plays is because they were just throwing a lot of plays under pressure. I do believe that that would be a great fit, especially when you have Bruce Arians there. That that
you
system
need
craves an
that
offensive
left
line.
tackle.
Someone there. So
I like Jonah Williams there. I like the cornerbacks, the cornerback discussion. I like Jonah Williams to the Bucs. What about guys that we're seeing in the top 5 now that that we just that we wouldn't take?
This is the one that worries me, and brought this up earlier. Is Rashawn Gary to the Raiders?
I'm
Just
seeing this
seems like
everywhere.
that seems just like it's. I think it's going to happen. Like once you said it, it got in my mind. I'm like, that's just too perfect for what everything John Gruden drafted a season ago. Just fell in love with these physical traits from guys who had no on-field production whatsoever over their first handful of picks a season ago. Colton Miller, all their picks, and that is Rashawn Gary to a T. A freak of nature athletically, but man, he could not even dominate college offensive linemen, that's where you should be dominating if you're that freakishly athletic.
That would be the concern. So we are going to have a whole segment about guys whose production is not matching the hype. Rashawn Gary, spoiler alert, will be a part of that discussion, but he's here as well. I'm seeing him at 4 to the Raiders in many different places. This is the difference between him and Nick Bosa and Josh Allen. Gary is just a traits projection, and drafting that in the first round anywhere, let alone the top 5, is just a massive risk. And I keep going back to, we've got 4 years of data watching guys go to the NFL, now 5 years of data of college players, and our pass rush stuff has been really, really good. Mm-hmm. And it's not always like it's not perfect, right? This guy is great, therefore he's great, good. It's not always perfect college to the NFL, but the guys that dominated at college, the guys who are dominating in the NFL or being really good in the NFL, dominated in college. Mm-hmm. That's the clear thing. And it's almost like you can eliminate guys if they did not truly dominate and have an elite grade. Gary has had good, not great grades, and last year was a subpar grade in his draft season. So he's never matched the number 1 overall recruit hype, and now he's getting this first-round hype strictly based off of traits. He made Bruce Feldman's Freaks list. I think he was number 2 on the preseason Freaks list. Like, all that stuff's legit, but man, it's just a lot of projection for him right now.
Yeah, pass rushing at the NFL level is far more of an art than it is how athletic you are. That athleticism only can get you in the door. It can't absolutely. We've seen so many athletic pass rushers just fizzle out at the NFL level because offensive linemen have tape study. They have, they realize they're almost as athletic as you there at that level. You have to be able to win to the outside, inside, and through offensive linemen at the next level. You really have to have a vast array of pass rushing moves, or else that one pass rushing move that you have just gets shut down. Rashawn Gary just had the bull rush at Michigan. That was pretty much all he has at this point. Now, that's a good thing. A bull rush is a good thing to have. Don't get me wrong. He's a freak of nature athletically. It's probably going to get him some play at the next level as well. But it's hard to develop multiple moves. We don't, going from 0 moves in college, 0 pass rushing moves, to then a full. That's like what they asked Jadeveon Clowney to do, and we've still seen him take forever to, develop that. And he was even more productive, far more productive than Gary at South Carolina.
And Clowney's another power player, power first player, even though he's got the burst and all that stuff. Just to be clear, because you keep talking about Josh Allen's athleticism. Him versus Gary. We've seen Allen put up an elite grade in the SEC.
Gary's athletic for a 290-pound man, and that's good, but that's Josh Allen's athletic for a 6'5", 260-pound man who can also runs like he could have played tight end. He runs like an elite tight end in the NFL. He is kind of going to run the 4.5s, elite change of direction. Gary is just a freak for that, but that's not the change of direction, those sort of things. He's more just very explosive for his size.
Other names that I've seen mocked in the top 5, Josh Jacobs, the Alabama running back.
I mean, we could just running back.
It's not an anti-Josh Jacobs take. Yeah. It's an anti-running back take. If you're, say, the Bucs at number 5 taking a running back, it's just roster building malpractice.
Yeah.
Really,
it's
really
like
what
taking
it
a kicker in the second round.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Even if you do get it, if you followed our channel and our podcast enough, we love Saquon Barkley as a player, but wouldn't take him in the top 5. Mm-hmm. Josh Jacobs, not Saquon Barkley. I don't care what he is. the value of that running back at that position compared to, say, his teammate Jonah Williams, like you said, at left tackle, far more valuable to get that good left tackle.
I would rather have, I've seen Devin White, the LSU linebacker. I'd rather have a linebacker in the top 5 than a running back, 10 times out of 10. I think you can impact the game far more in this day and age as a linebacker than you can as a running back.
Yeah, it's all about the pass game and coverage. The other name that I've seen, not a ton, but N'Keal Harry, the wide receiver from Arizona State. He's got some freakish plays. He's a big wide receiver. But again, in this deep wide receiver class, I don't even know if he's the top guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he could separate.
That's the thing. It's such a
level.
deep wide receiver class. I think there's probably going to be 15 or so guys going the first 2 rounds.
Position scarcity is a thing.
And that is a thing, yes.
Right? So you kind of have to wait. And that's basically the whole argument against drafting a running back high is position scarcity. Every single year, there are multiple running backs that you can get in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round who are productive as first rounders, whereas it's hard to get offensive tackles, and that's part of the balance of this whole draft theory thing. Do you have to reach?
Just like pretty much all are top
edge rushers are all in the top, and they're safest. If you're looking at the right stuff, again, we'll do this in our burning question. If you're looking at the right stuff, they're the safest, right? So that's our top 5 breakdown. There's a whole different ways to slice this, but I think it's this defensive heavy draft at the top. We're talking all defensive players unless teams trade up to go get the quarterbacks or maybe get an offensive tackle like Jonah Williams. Right?
That's about the only guy I could foresee offensively non-quarterback going top 10.
I also feel like this is the draft where there are just some massive – I guess it's every year, but 6 through 15, there are going to be some names that aren't even talked about right now that end up going in the 6 through 15 range.
Okay.
Like, why did this guy –
I was going to say give me a name, but you just said they're not being talked about right now.
They're not being talked about. Somebody's going to come out of nowhere, like Mark Barron a few years ago.
Miller.
Like, oh, yeah, he's a top 10 player. All right.
Yeah,
Colton Miller. Exactly. Colton Miller is a guy that showed up out of nowhere in the top 15. All right, let's get into players whose production has not met the hype. You wrote this on the site last month, actually. We did a whole YouTube video on it, but it's good to, come back to it. Rashawn Gary was kind of the poster boy for this, right?
Yes.
Again, athletic player, no real production on the field. Let's discuss the 2 quarterbacks who made your list. It was Daniel Jones from Duke, Drew Lock from Missouri. Just saw both of the guys at the Senior Bowl. How much of this is just quarterbacks have to get pushed up because of need?
That was the thing. It's quarterbacks have to get pushed up. You're just teams. You can't as a GM go into 2019 when you have a terrible starting quarterback. Say you're the Jaguars. Say you just can't go into the Jaguars, Giants, the Broncos, someone like that. You can't go in with no hope. You can't go into the next season just saying, well, this is going to be, we're going to send out Cody Kessler this year, with this roster. That's just not.
Jalen Ramsey would not be too happy.
You can't look your, fan base, or you can't look your owner in the eye and say that's what you're going to do. So as a GM, you almost buy yourself 2 more years of security by drafting a quarterback there. In the first round and be like, we got to see this through. I got to see, this quarterback through, even if realistically they should not be getting drafted anywhere close to that.
So, Daniel Jones or Drew Lock.
We touched on them in the Senior Bowl podcast a week ago, pretty more in depth, but yeah.
I think Lock is still more of a lock to go in the first round.
Hey-o.
How about that? I don't mind Lock as a late first-round pick.
He actually had a good Senior Bowl week.
He had a very good Senior Bowl week.
He had a very good Senior Bowl week. Daniel Jones did not, despite, he won the MVP of the game, but that wasn't decided
Which
by,
doesn't
evaluators.
matter at all. And he wasn't necessarily the best quarterback even in the game. Still think, Tyree Jackson was probably the best quarterback, and he had the worst week of any QB in practice. So
Will Grier was close.
Will Grier also
but
did
Tyree
have
Jackson had the lowest grade,
Yeah, he had Will Grier and Tyree both had a rough week. So Locke and Jones, 2 guys where, again, the production's not matching the hype in part because of the quarterback thing. The other name that we mentioned last week, Montez Sweat, the edge rusher out of Mississippi State. And with him, it's in part, to me, it's the fact that it's a deep defensive line class, and you're kind of projecting based off some length and some traits and all that stuff where he's never really dominated either.
Yeah, that's a twofold thing. He was a senior, so his 4th year. Usually, guys come out early if they really are, athletic freaks like Rashawn Gary, who came out early. If you really are that athletically freakish, and you should be beating up on college offensive linemen, you should be doing it early on in your career. Even, Ed Oliver has beaten up on college offensive linemen early on in his career. Montez Sweat did not really grade out well until this season, and even this season his grade was only 86.2 overall. So you think that length advantage should have come to fruition at some point against college offensive tackles, because college offensive tackles are the ones that get moved, to guard at the next level. If not all of them have 35, 36-inch arms, he's going to be going up against tackles with comparable length. We even saw it in the one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl when he went up against Dalton Risner again in the game. He kind of got owned once again. So I do think there are some question marks for Montez Sweat that his physical traits aren't going to be enough at the next level.
You mentioned something that I think is, a debate with our numbers guys over here all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, guys, how much should we weigh combine data? How much do we weigh arm length and size and three cone? And you love the three cone and all that stuff. Oh, yeah. And because they're the numbers guys, they're just like, it would show up in the numbers. It would show up somewhere in the grading. Mm-hmm. And so it's a simplistic way of saying it. And it's not that guys don't improve. And obviously guys that have a better athletic profile have more of a chance to improve. I don't think we're doubting any of that. But I do love sometimes the simplicity of the guys who are just, here's what the grading says. Here's what the grading says this guy projects as. And if a guy has length to use and he didn't use it in college, it's a big question mark that he'll do it at the next level. If a guy has a great three cone and it didn't show up on film in your grading, why is it going to at the next level? So they come to this really black and white way of looking at things, which I think is probably a safe way to do things.
It's interesting, and it kind of goes to your outliers question that we're going to touch on.
All right, let's
just go to that. Yeah,
we'll tease it. We teased it. All right. So give me just the two other guys that you mentioned though. Production not meeting the hype. DK Metcalf, first round wide receiver, just never graded well, dropped too many passes. And Ed Oliver, we like Ed Oliver. We don't love him. Pass rushing's never really been.
And he's facing lesser competition.
Yeah,
where it really should. Power 5 offensive linemen are bad enough. You're playing group of 5 offensive linemen. It really should have, he should not be losing a lot of reps. You see guys like Nick Bosa when he faced, group of 5 offensive linemen. When you play, Central Michigan or whatever, he ends up dominating those offensive linemen. Just does not lose, and that was not the case for Oliver.
We're going to get the comments that he's been doubled every single snap. That's not the case.
Not the case.
He's not doubled on every single snap. Okay, that solves that. All right, let's get to. I think we're going to try to do this every week. Burning question, just general draft questions, draft theory. So my burning question this week, it's about outliers. Who are the real outliers? And again, this was my tweet the other night where I basically said, we hear when you're evaluating, you're not supposed to focus on the outliers, right? An outlier for us at PFF is Deion Jones. The grading said he wasn't going to be very good, and he's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean because of that you don't throw out all of your evaluations because of one guy. You just say, hey, we missed one.
Yeah.
And as long as you hit at a high percentage everywhere else, you throw that aside. You don't try to explain away the numbers just to explain one guy. That's the point of don't focus on outliers. My question, though, is the NFL actually identifying the right outliers? So the examples we always hear, Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, now throw Baker in there, they're outliers because of their height.
Yes.
So, yes, they are. They're 6-foot quarterbacks who are very successful. But should the outliers be focused on the height part of it or the fact that these were very productive college quarterbacks who should have projected really well to the NFL? Right? So we're focused on the wrong things. Why are guys like Christian Hackenberg, Jake Locker, E.J. Manuel, are they the real outliers because the NFL decided because the height thing's fine and the look is fine, they're going to be good in the NFL. But the outlier is the fact that they were not productive.
Yes.
So the fact if Jake Locker hit, it would be more of an outlier than if Baker Mayfield hit. If you're looking at the right stuff. Does that all make sense? Did I explain that well enough?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if you did. We'll have to let the listeners tell us if we explained that well enough or not. But I do think the interesting thing is what data points you're looking at, what data points you're calling outliers.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yes,
right?
Yeah. So you're calling height an outlier at that. But the thing is, height doesn't make it so. Height makes it more difficult to play quarterback at the college level as well. It's not. It doesn't all of a sudden. There's nothing that changes from playing quarterback at the college level to the playing quarterback at the NFL level. That all of a sudden that height's going to be different. And I think similar thing to arm length for offensive tackles. It's still hard to block with short arms as an offensive tackle in college as well. There there are a bunch of also other data points that go into playing, tackle at a high level, playing quarterback at a high level. So
Right.
you're below average on one, or you don't have one, but say you have everything else and it didn't impact you there. Yes, it's just one piece of the puzzle. That doesn't mean you throw out this whole guy and call him a guard because his arms are too, or you throw out this whole quarterback because he's too short. You throw out this cornerback because he doesn't have the length. Those sort of things. I don't think. I think there's like a handful of different data points. Now, if multiple of them are outliers, sure, throw them out. But to have one data point really decide your whole evaluation on a prospect, that to me is when you get in trouble.
Yeah, you helped explain that a little bit. I think the arm length thing is a good one, right? If you say, well, this guy with sub 34-inch arms or whatever is an outlier, those guys are never successful at the NFL level, and then all of a sudden Julian Davenport gets a shot because he's got 37-inch arms or whatever it is. Julian Davenport, if you're looking at arm length, then yes, the sub 34-inch guy is an outlier. But if you're looking at production, which probably matters more, then Julian Davenport having success at the NFL level is a far bigger outlier than, say, Jonah Williams, even if Jonah Williams has 30-inch arms, because Jonah Williams is a better offensive tackle. That's my whole point. Jake Locker.
There are other things. There are athleticism. There's how the change of direction ability. There's how you can actually just take pass sets in general. Like
what if we just kept it simple and it's here's how well these guys play football?
Yeah.
So my whole point is Christian Hackenberg, who looked like an NFL quarterback, was bad at playing football. If somehow he became a good NFL player, he's a far bigger outlier than any short quarterback or short-armed offensive tackle. He's a massive outlier because he just didn't play football well.
Yeah. And I do like bringing it back to where is this going to impact you? Because I have come around on, I do think, undersized edge rushers, I do think even productive ones in college, it's not going to translate.
Yeah, they struggle.
The NFL. There are certain things that I do think, but you have to relate it to where is the difference going to come into play? Where are you as an undersized edge rusher? Where were you winning in college that you're not going to win in the NFL? And I think you can point to direct things with that. But where as a short-armed offensive tackle are you all of a sudden winning in college that is going to get exposed in the NFL? I mean, Jonah Williams, I haven't seen anything on tape. He went up against Cleveland Farrell, allowed one pressure all game long. I didn't see anything in that national championship game that really showed me that, he's going to get exposed by that length.
Yeah, I mean, the footwork and everything else that goes into it, I think is far more important than, like you said, the isolated data point. So I think we made our points. If you're going to identify outliers, focus on either the right data points or multiple data points.
Multiple data points is my thing. Yes.
Is what you're saying. And I'm saying to focus on how well a guy plays football. And if you focus on that, then the guys who don't play football, they're the outliers if they actually succeed at the next level. So in this case, Baker Mayfield's not an outlier. Nobody should be surprised that Baker Mayfield had success because we told him that he was going to, and he will have success. And him and Russell Wilson are all having success because they're good football players. They're not outliers just because they're 6 feet tall. They are expected. They're expected outcomes.
Although I will say 6'7" football quarterbacks have not had a good track record.
But I would say this is the opposite, right? Because I know Brock Osweiler and Dan McGuire, they're just bad football players.
I know. I'm just
right?
making a joke.
You're just messing with me. You're fun. Oh, yeah, you're funny. Sorry. Yeah, I'm always with the funny guys, you and Sam. Sam thinks he's hilarious.
I was going to say, so just...
He's so angry on here. Everybody gets so mad. He doesn't read the YouTube comments, but the YouTube commenters hate him.
He has a negative slant.
Not all of them, no.
But
Sam's good. We have good chemistry, good rapport. Miss you, Sam. See you Thursday. Sam will be here Thursday to preview the Super Bowl. He'll bring all that negative energy back. We'll love it. All right, let's get to some my guys. So these, the guys we've been looking at recently that have either caught our eye, we're a little bit higher on than others. Who we looking at this week, Mike? That is your guy this week.
We're going cornerback, and I must really like this guy because I wouldn't subject myself to actually say his name if I didn't have to. But Amani Oruwariye, the 6'1" corner from Penn State, long. He had, for my money, the best week of any cornerback at the Senior Bowl. In the data, it says he had the highest win percentage of any cornerback at the Senior Bowl, so that helps back up my take. He flips his hips extremely well for a bigger corner. He played a lot of off coverage at Penn State, and I like seeing him press more here. This past week, I thought he did very well in that. A lot of traits to love there. Didn't grade out exceptionally well, but I think a lot of that was he wasn't getting beat deep. He was getting beat a lot underneath more than he was deep in off-zone coverage there. I think I like his ball skills on the deep ball. I don't think he's going to give up a lot of. I like how he projects to the next level.
He started out really well last year. Made it into one of my fall mock drafts, I think, in the first round. Tapered off a little bit as the season went on. I'm with you though. I definitely don't overrate size at corner, but if a guy that has size and he can move and cover, then that's extremely valuable. I'm going to stick at cornerback too, because I do think there's a debate at the top who the best cornerback is. DeAndre Baker is the guy from Georgia that I've had as the top corner coming off the board in my mock drafts. So I like a lot of what he brings to the table. I have some question marks with him as well, but he's only 5'11". I don't care. He covers really well. He's got a good feel for man coverage. He is excellent at just seeing playing through the receiver and just mirroring the receiver in man coverage. He has excellent ball skills, got his hands on a ton of passes. He tapered off a little bit toward the end of the year as well as the competition stiffened. And then I just get so scared watching college cornerbacks because they get really grabby because of the rules. And some guys are straight up grabby, and then some guys are just tactically physical, I would say, down the field. So sorting through the plays where a cornerback is beaten and just like holding on for dear life versus a guy saying, because there's no illegal contact in college, so they can get away with stuff.
That's Clemson corners.
So who are the Clemson guys are really good at
Trayvon Mullen.
Trayvon Mullen's I watched him a little bit yesterday too. He's got a lot of plays down the field where he is physical. And the Clemson corners generally grade well in our system, and Mullen was just okay. That's why we overrated Gary Peters a few years ago.
Oh, don't even bring him up. But continue with Baker. Let's hear it.
Sorry, DeAndre Baker. I think he might not be the best man corner. I think he's the best all-around corner. Scheme diverse, off coverage, good tackler, plays the underneath stuff really well, plays the ball down the field really well. And he's not Denzel Ward, but he's that type of player where it's like, all right, he's sub 6 foot, but he could mirror good route runners. So that's what I see with Baker.
I like scheme diversity too, because I don't want to say I don't when they put guys into man and zone corner buckets, 75 to 80% of the teams like split. They're like 50-50 man and zone. The principles that they're playing with their cornerbacks. No one's playing. Only a few teams are playing just zone or just man all the time, or just man principles all the time. So many teams are asking you to do a lot as corners. So if you're this fantastic man corner who can't play zone coverage to save his life, what's his face?
Greedy?
No, the former Raiders cornerback.
Oh, Nnamdi
Asamoah. If you're Nnamdi Asamoah, you're only there's only a few schemes in the NFL that are going to be able to fit and play to your strengths. While the complete opposite end of the spectrum, same thing. So you have to be able to play both, in my opinion. Now, man, I think is more valuable, but I do think you have to be able to play both in most teams in today's NFL.
Yeah, and so in the NFL today, just the interesting numbers here. When teams play man coverage, completion percentage goes down, big plays go up. In zone, completion percentage goes way up, big plays go down. So it really is. There really isn't a perfect way to play defense in the NFL. There is a variety in the NFL. So I think that's why when you're making a draft board that is not for one team, it's for all 32 teams, a guy like Baker has more value. When I'm looking at Greedy Williams from LSU, I do think the teams that play man coverage more, at least, he has a little bit more value because he's got good press man skills. I don't love Greedy playing off coverage, though, from LSU. We'll talk more about him.
But
Man,
that's your guy.
That's my guy, DeAndre Baker. You went Amani Oruwariye. One of our big philosophical questions coming forward is going to be about cornerbacks, because last year our guys ran the numbers and they said, hey, coverage is more valuable than pass rush. And just so you know what's happening over here at PFF, when guys give us these new takes that are a little bit against what conventional thinking is, like I start questioning it too. Did you have questions about that? When George and Eric ran the numbers last year and they said coverage is more valuable than pass rush, did you think, hey, that makes sense, or I'm going to do a double take on it?
I always thought
you're always in on that
one corner makes more of an impact than one pass rusher, because I think there's things you can do to take a pass rusher out of a game. Yes, you cannot throw at that corner, but that's difficult to run an offense saying, hey, we're not going to, there's like a progression, there's plays. You can't, just take a guy out of a progression. It's tough to do as quarterbacks. So.
And it's a chicken or a corner being so good that he physically takes the receiver out of the progression is extremely valuable. And it's a chicken or an egg thing. What came first, the pass rush, or the coverage? They do kind of work off each other a little bit.
Yes.
But I think that's a big question. So what do you do with cornerbacks? Do all of a sudden you need to have 7 or 8 corners in your first round because it's more valuable? And we're learning that. I think that's one of our future discussions.
I don't think there's one perfect way I mean, we saw the Eagles win a Super Bowl with easily the best pass rush, but then they were easily the best pass rush. They were head and shoulders above in terms of how well they rushed the passer. They had 4 guys across. They went like 6 deep, which anyone, if you go 6 deep in corners, also we've never really seen anyone be that utterly dominant on the defensive side of the ball. But when the Jaguars had 2 of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, we saw how when they were playing at their peak, we saw how good their defense was. So it is difficult to isolate one or the other.
It's always.
But I do think you can, like I said, my take on this is you can fake a pass rush better than you can fake coverage in terms of you can bring 5 guys in a blitz, and that's going to get the ball to the quarterback's hands quicker. You can't, you can drop 9 into coverage, but then you'll give the quarterback all day.
Yeah.
So it's tough to.
We'll discuss it more going forward, but that'll be the breakdown on some of our draft videos. We're always taking your feedback. What do you guys want to hear when it comes to draft time? Next week, I think we're going to have you drop a mock draft. Are you ready to go for next week?
I'm all in. Yeah,
so after the Super Bowl, we'll have you drop a mock draft. We'll discuss that on the pod next week. So that'll do it for us for today. We'll be back Thursday. I'll be back with Sam, unless I get the call, Mike. Unless we finally go have the baby, then I'll be back previewing the Super Bowl. If I'm not, then you'll be here with Sam.
Yeah.
So we'll see. You never know what you're going to get on Thursday. But thanks for tuning in. Be sure to go get PFF Edge and Elite. QB Annual was live last week. Go check it out. You will not find anything like it. The best, most in-depth quarterback analysis out there, a part of your Edge or Elite package. See you guys on Thursday.